My name is Emmanuel Taylor. I'm going to be your facilitator today. We're going to be joined by some folks from the Department of Energy's Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, or OCED, as well as the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub team. So we're going to be hearing from everyone in just a few moments. Before we begin, I just want to point out a few options in your control panel that you may find to be useful. You can turn on live captions by hitting the Show Captions button in your control panel located in the bottom of your screen in Zoom. To access a Spanish language interpretation, you can click the English button in your control panel. Zoom recently rolled out an update, and so that button may still say interpretation for you. So just be mindful, there may be a difference there. Today's webinar will be recorded. And the recording, as well as all of the presentation slides that you'll see today, are going to be posted on OCED's website within the coming days. Next slide, please. But I do want to extend a genuine and warm welcome to everyone. We definitely appreciate your interest, your support, your questions, and we look forward to having your participation today during this briefing. Next slide, please. As many of you are aware, the Department of Energy's Office of Clean Energy Demonstration announced the selection of 7 regional clean hydrogen hubs back in October. And at that time, those projects began negotiations with the Department of Energy. After months of negotiation, on July 24th, OCED awarded the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, which is being led by the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association, referred to as PNWH2, with a $27.5 million federal funding grant, which will begin phase 1 of the project plan. So DOE and PNWH2 are here today to provide an update, speak to the project's information, and also lay out opportunities that will help to shape the future of energy within your particular region and in your community. And so today, all of you will have the opportunity to engage with folks from DOE and from the project team and to ask questions at the end of this session. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just quickly introduce, actually all of the folks that you see here will take a moment to introduce themselves. First of all, again, my name is Emmanuel Taylor. I am not a member of the team at OCED. I am also not affiliated with PNWH2. I'm an independent facilitator, and I'm here today to make sure that all of your questions are well represented in the discussion that follows. So we'll begin our introductions with Katie, and we'll just go down the line here. Please let us know where you're from and also your affiliation with the project, your role within the hub.
Great, thanks, Emmanuel. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie O'Shea, and I am the Federal Project Manager for this hub, and I'm with the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, or OCED.
Hi there, I'm Susie Baker. I am also with OCED, and I'm the Stakeholder Engagement Lead for all of the Hubs program. I'll hand it to Chris.
Good morning or afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Green. I'm president of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association and have been working on this hub since the very beginning stages a few years ago. Nice to see everybody today.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kate McAteer, and I'm the Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs at Washington State University's Tri-Cities campus. And I'm here as a Community Benefits Lead for the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub.
Fantastic. So thank you all, and we'll look forward to hearing from each of you later in the agenda. I want to talk a bit about the agenda for today. So first, we're going to hear from the OCED team, and they're going to provide some insights into project management and oversight for this particular project, and as well as some next steps and other resources that may be of interest to everyone here. And then we're going to hear directly from the PNWH2 team. They'll provide an overview of the project, as well as some discussion on the community benefits commitments. And then we're going to go into a Q&A session. So during that Q&A session, we're going to try to address as many questions that you all have. And we're going to take questions today using the Q&A module within Zoom. So on your Zoom control panel, you should see a button that says Q&A. At any point in time, if you have a question, please feel free to type that question into the Q&A box and submit it. We're going to review those questions and we'll use that as the basis for our Q&A session later on. So you don't have to hold your questions until the end. You can submit them as at any point in time when the question comes to you, but we will address all of those questions later in the agenda. Also, if you see a question that somebody else posed and you think that we should prioritize that in the conversation, you do have the option to upvote or hit the like button associated with any of the questions that are listed. And then we'll receive some closing remarks from the OCED team as well. But without any further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Katie, who you just met, who will talk a bit about the hub and its activities.
Okay, great. Let's get started. So Congress provided funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act to help fund clean energy demonstration projects, including the hydrogen hubs. So typically, OCED funds up to 50% of the costs for a given project in order to deliver clean energy technology demonstration projects at scale in partnership with the private sector. Core to our office's work is an emphasis on equity. We know we cannot get to a decarbonized energy system without working closely with the involved communities, and that is why it is critical that we hear your questions and concerns. Community input not only shapes the specific projects OCED funds, but also shapes our comprehensive approach to building out the clean energy industry. Your community can be part of this. Next slide, please. This slide captures the OCED portfolio at a high level, which actually is the next slide. Thank you. That was my fault. We are investing more than $25 billion in a variety of pathways and technologies essential to achieving our clean energy future. For example, in addition to the Hydrogen Hubs program that we are discussing with you today, our portfolio includes investments in long-duration energy storage and carbon management, as well as funding for clean energy projects in rural and remote areas on current and former mine lands. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law provided DOE with $8 billion in funding to develop regional hydrogen hubs and accelerate the commercial scale deployment of low-cost clean hydrogen. Of that $8 billion, we allocated up to $1 billion for a demand-side initiative to ensure that both producers and end users in the hydrogen hubs have the market certainty they need during the early years of production to unlock critical private investment. The rest will go directly to funding the 7 selected hubs that OCED announced. The 7 selected hydrogen hubs will catalyze more than $40 billion in private investment and create tens of thousands of good-paying jobs. Next slide, please. I know you are here to learn more specifically about the P&W Hub, but it is helpful to show the landscape of the Hydrogen Hub selectees and remind folks that a big goal of these hubs is to catalyze a national network of clean hydrogen infrastructure to reduce pollution and carbon emissions. The map shows an overview of the 7 selected regional hydrogen hub projects. The selections were diverse in terms of their hydrogen feedstock, end use, the total miles and states spanned, as well as the size of the various projects. Next slide. Now, here are a couple of overall statistics on the P&W Hydrogen Hub. This $1 billion federal investment will be matched by recipients to leverage billions of dollars to strengthen local economies, create and maintain thousands of high-quality jobs, and slash harmful emissions that jeopardize public health and ecosystems. The P&W Hub plans to produce hydrogen from a 100% carbon-free energy feedstock and to be used in heavy-duty transportation, fertilizer production, power generation, refineries, data centers, and seaports, including for drayage and cargo handling. The expansion of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles in heavy-duty transportation will not only drive improvements in air quality, but will also facilitate greater connectivity and movement of goods, as well as the expansion of a clean West Coast freight network that links to the California Hydrogen Hub. The hub is also dedicated to ensuring benefits flow directly to impacted communities, creating 10,000 new quality jobs and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 1.7 million metric tons per year. Next slide, please. This slide details OCED's robust project management oversight, and this is done through a phased approach with a go, no-go point before each phase. This means that a project must meet the agreed upon deliverables for that phase before they can unlock the next tranche of funding. This ensures that taxpayer dollars are properly managed. I want to point out that the PNW Hydrogen Hub is currently at the start of phase 1, and only a portion of that funding has been awarded. Most of the money won't go out the door until phase 3, which is the construction phase. Next slide.
Thanks so much, Katie. All right, let's talk a little bit about community benefits and OCED programs. So all OCED programs, including the hydrogen hubs, are required to have community benefit plans or CBPs. These have 4 interdependent parts. First, community and labor engagement, which seeks to involve those impacted in decisions that affect them. Next, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DEIA, which seeks to help build a clean energy economy reflective of all Americans. Third, investing in the American workforce. The focus here is to help build the skilled long-term workforce needed to power the energy transition. And finally, the Justice 40 initiative, which created the goal that 40% of the overall benefits of certain federal investments, including those in clean energy like hydrogen, will flow to disadvantaged communities. Each hub was required to develop a community benefits plan to ensure that local communities and workers are engaged in these projects from the outset and receive concrete benefits. And OCED will provide robust project management oversight of the plan implementation throughout the project lifecycle. Next slide. So as we transition from the application phase to the actual project phase, we transition from the term community benefits plan to community benefits commitment. So just want to point out that Pacific Northwest has now passed that threshold. So that turn of phrase changes. And what we're looking for in terms of these commitments are included here. And some of the critical areas include awardees going beyond a vision or assessment, and including actionable goals, outcomes, and implementation steps supported by adequate money, people, and time. So, really putting the resources where needed. The awardee must include mechanisms for accountability to and transparency with impacted communities and propose clear metrics to measure success. Proposed actions must align with the needs and priorities of impacted communities. And the commitments must demonstrate how the project design will minimize and mitigate negative impacts and harm, particularly in already overburdened communities. We're looking to the hubs to provide a plan for creating quality jobs, equitable access, and investing in the workforce. And I want to reiterate that the CBPs submitted an application have changed significantly, and these community benefit commitments are also going to be a living document that's going to evolve in response to community and worker feedback over time. So I want to emphasize that OCED's role is oversight over CBPs or CBCs. OCED might help to facilitate and support certain engagements, but the hub itself is going to be conducting the majority of engagement in your region. Next slide. So to give an update on the current status of the Pacific Northwest Hub, phase 1 has been awarded. So the hub can begin to carry out the agreed upon activities over the next 12 to 18 months. And this includes planning, design, and essentially community and labor engagement activities. So each technology provider is going to be responsible for the planning and development of their respective facilities and impacted communities, while all hub collaborators will contribute to community benefits activities in a coordinated fashion. Negotiations over the phase 2 award will consider the status and quality of implementation during phase 1, including community benefit commitments, which will be updated to reflect key learnings and developments as community feedback is collected and reincorporated into those commitments. OCED's funding actions are subject to compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and other requirements, including the National Historic Preservation Act and Endangered Species Act. These projects are still very early on in the planning phase, and we need your input to help shape the hub and community benefit commitments of these projects. So we're so glad that you're here to help do that. So before we hear more from the hub leadership, I want to make sure that you know how to stay engaged and what the next touch points will be, as well as how to get in touch with us in case you have any questions. Next slide. Oh, next slide, please. There we go. So this slide shows you the path of engagement from when, oh, let's see, go back one. Sorry, y'all. There we go. All right. From when a project applies to OCED for competitive funding to when it's awarded and moves through the project management phases. These hubs will take many years to come to fruition and will have to pass through several stages before any construction activities begin. We can't give specific timelines yet because each hub will be different, and also because it can shift significantly during negotiations and later stages. We've listed some concrete ways you can get involved here in phase one, including reaching out to the hub or DOE directly and attending virtual briefings and community meetings. Let us know via email if you'd like to receive additional information about future local engagement plans. And engagement is going to be ongoing throughout all of these phases. And one of DOE's oversight roles is to ensure that meaningful ongoing engagement continues regularly and consistently in each phase. Between each phase, DOE will assess the project's progress, including the quality of community benefits, and make a decision about whether the project will receive additional funding and the ability to move to the next phase. And finally, in addition to these mechanisms, all hubs are subject again to NEPA, which includes robust public participation processes, which will occur during phases 1 and 2. Next slide. So these briefings are an early step in broadening engagement between DOE, the selectee, and communities impacted by the projects. Information and details on all the hub-specific briefings are provided on our website. This is our second post-award community briefing. The Appalachian Hydrogen Hub is scheduled for next Friday at noon, and you can register on our local engagement page if you're interested in learning more about that particular hub. You can also find the Pacific Northwest website at pnwh2.com, as well as all of the other hubs. Next slide. So these next two slides showcase some of the resources that DOE has to offer regarding the hubs programs. Slides will be linked at the local engagement webpage in the coming days. So if you want to come back and reference these slides as well as the recording of this session. But yeah, we're adding new information to the website almost daily, so make sure you check back regularly. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it back to Emmanuel and the hub leadership so they can have a little bit of a conversation about the details of the hub, and then we'll move to Q&A.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much, Susie.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Emmanuel.
it. And first, I'd like to just begin just by saying congratulations to the PNW H2 Hub for reaching this particular milestone and being awarded with the phase 1. So we're looking forward to working with all of you over the next 12 to 18 months as the hub carries out its planning, analysis, and design activities, in addition to all of the stakeholder and community engagement activities that will occur across Washington, Oregon, and Montana as well. So we know that phase 1 is just the beginning, and there's a much longer process to follow. This OCED phase 1 award is for $27.5 million, and that's matched with the hub's investment for a total of $125 million estimated just for phase 1. And the total OCED cost share amount over the life of the project has the potential to be up to $1 billion. With an expected private sector match of at least 3 to 1. And that's subject to that phased project management approach that was just discussed. So we're looking forward to this particular opportunity for more folks to get involved from the community within the project. And we want to use this time to help to familiarize everyone who is attending with the hub so that they can find ways that work for them in terms of getting involved during phase 1 of the project. So I'd like to start by talking about the proposed project plan at a high level. And in particular, it would be helpful to better understand the association itself. can either of you just give us some background, some details on the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association?
Manuel, thanks a lot. I'll kick us off here from the hub side, and just Manuel, thanks to you, and really just want to say thanks to OCED. So for folks listening in, I don't know that this will be publicized very often, but OCED's been doing a really great job of trying to get this hub program off the ground, and have been fantastic partners. So I have a lot of faith and confidence that we'll be successful, in large part due to the underpinning of the foundation of support we've got from OCED. So thank you, OCED, very much. This is great that we're getting out here and get some more information out. And Emmanuel, yeah, to answer your question, the PNWH2 is basically a very large public-private partnership. As we began thinking about how to create this and how to assemble the team to go after this particular grant, we started by talking to lots of project developers and then lots of partners. So we really early on were engaging tribes and labor unions and community leaders and environmental groups. And everybody we could think of that might have an interest or something to say about the hydrogen economy. So those were the kinds of things that were really important to us as we got this started more than 2 years ago. And so far, it's been a really, I think, a good success and a testament to how much you can achieve if you get all those kinds of different background folks together to work on something. So we're really interested in, as we get through this process, to make sure that we've got really high wage jobs. We are really focused on decarbonization for parts of the economy and the transportation sectors that are really hard to decarbonize, and making sure that at the end of the day, we are part of the team, part of this process nationally and to some degree globally to get hydrogen as a market to lift off and be self-sustaining over time. And so we're grateful to have these investments from DOE to get that started. But the goal is that hydrogen becomes a new energy commodity product on the market with a stabilized price and lots of customers. And so that's what our goal is. And again, just to mention again, the importance of our commitment to working together with tribes, labor. These are folks, these aren't just cursory or sort of cosmetic relationships. We've been working together with them, advocating with them, having them help plan all this work. So we've been really, really focused on that, and proud to say as well that we've got projects, and I will talk about some of them later, that span the Northwest. We've got several in Washington State, several in Oregon State, and then actually one in Montana. And so we're really thinking about this as a regional hub and looking forward to how we build this out here in the Pacific Northwest, and then eventually start connecting it to some of the other centers of gravity for hydrogen, both on the West Coast and into the mountain ranges and into the Midwest. So that's a little bit of very high level information, Emmanuel, about our Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Association.
Okay, no, I definitely appreciate that. That's helpful. I'm curious if you can also share a bit about the hub's vision in terms of technology development for the region.
Sure. And I know there's some information on our website as well, so I don't know if I'll get into the really granular details here. But I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we're focused on green electrolytic hydrogen. So we want to make sure that what we produce is going to be as carbon free or low carbon intensity as possible. And we've got a host of different kinds of technologies that we are planning to build out in this hub. Some of them are related to production specifically, but some of them are other aspects and fuel cell usage and those kinds of things. So we've got a blend of different kinds of things that we think are important to make sure this market is able to lift off correctly. And as I mentioned, we're really, really intent and focused on the decarbonization aspect of this. And so by some of our analytics and estimations and work that we've done together with the Department of Energy, we think that we can reduce carbon emissions by about 1.7 million metric tons per year, or roughly the equivalent to about 400,000 gasoline-powered cars. And that's just the start. I think for Washington State, I know for Oregon, we have aspirations far beyond that in terms of deploying hydrogen and replacing fossil fuel-based equipment and transportation vehicles over time. But this is a start down that path in the right direction. We've also got, again, like I said, a host of different kinds of projects here that are going to look at heavy duty transportation, long duration energy storage. And we've even got a project that is going to displace the fossil based products out of the fertilizer production process. So we will use hydrogen as an input to create a new fertilizer product that is essentially carbon free. So we're really excited about the ability for hydrogen to plug into a handful of places that truly are hard to decarbonize to help us achieve our overall decarbonization goals.
Well, fantastic. No, I think that's a great overview, and excited to see so many different use cases being incorporated in the hub's activities. You've talked about some of the geographic diversity associated with the projects. You mentioned some projects in Washington, Oregon, and Montana. Can you speak a bit more about the locations for these particular projects?
Just make a little bit put some information out. So I see you got the map up. This is really helpful. And so the map, I think, is probably the easiest way to explain all of this. And again, for folks that are interested, there's additional information on our website. But we've got, I'll just kind of try to be very brief here. Node 1 is more of a regional node. So we have a production partner there, and is going to produce hydrogen and then work with partners all over the region. Node 2 up there in the Bellingham, Washington area is led by a company called AltaGas, and they're planning to produce some hydrogen and then work with a host of partners to sell that hydrogen too, so they can offtake into their various markets. But really excited about that facility coming online up there in the Bellingham area. And it's great in terms of our community benefits work as well. They have had some bad luck over the last decade or so with some jobs being displaced over time. And so we're really excited to be able to bring some more jobs and economic activity to that area. And we've got another node down in sort of on the border of Washington and Oregon, right on the Oregon side. So Air Liquide is working on a project down there to intake some hydrogen and then go through a liquefaction process and produce that for customers that need a liquefied or cryogenically stored type of hydrogen. So we're excited about the work that they're going to do. I mentioned Atlas Agro already, node 4 there in the Tri-Cities area. So Atlas Agro is going to produce fertilizer. So really excited about that and looking forward to seeing how they are able to disrupt that industry, hopefully around the world someday. We've got some additional hubs. We got one down in sort of near Baker City, Oregon. A group called Novo Hydrogen is working on doing some production down there and trying to get that hydrogen into heavy duty tractor and mining equipment. So we think that's a really good use of some of the work down there. And then we've got, let's see, I can't read my own. This is too short here. Node 6, we've got Mitsubishi Heavy Industries that's going to be doing some work down there in the Boardman, Oregon area, producing some hydrogen, and then working with partners like PGE and others. We've got another node over in the Centralia, Lewis County area, Twin Transit. We're really excited about this one because we think that transit agencies are going to be one of the lead off takers to really get this market going. And we're encouraged by how much we see transit and metro associations across the region really looking seriously at using some fuel cell buses to complement the fleet of battery buses that they have for some of those longer routes. So we're very encouraged by the progress going on in transit agencies around the region. And then finally, we've got a node out there in Montana at St. Regis, and they're a smaller producer, but are going to produce some hydrogen and really thinking about fueling sort of the fueling station infrastructure needed along that I-90 corridor. And so we've got a blend of different things around our region, but we're hopeful that by sort of selecting these particular nodes and these locations along some key corridors like I-5, I-90, I-84, et cetera, that we'll be able to really make a dent in trying to get this product to take hold in the marketplace.
Awesome. I'll definitely appreciate that overview. And there are a number of questions that are coming up in the chat. So we'll look forward to diving into some of the details and the specifics in some of these locations during the Q&A. For now, I want to switch gears just a bit and talk about the community benefits commitments. And so the OCED team, and Susie in particular earlier, described sort of that transition from the initial community benefits plan to the commitments. And we know this is a key part of OCED's project management and oversight process, and a key determinant of whether or not the hub continues to progress through the various stages in federal funding. And just like the initial CBP was updated in this stage, we know that there's this intention to keep evolving the plan through the various stages as you interact with community members, learn things, incorporate feedback, and all of that. So we're interested in knowing more about the CBP commitments that are included at this particular time. And OCED sort of looks at the community benefits from a number of different perspectives. We'd like to start with the community and labor engagement. You talked about working with unions and other labor organizations. So can you share a little bit about the hub's commitments in this particular area?
Yeah, Emmanuel, I can take this. So at the PNWH2, we share OCED's commitment to the principles that you've just talked about and that Susie laid out. Our community engagement is really organized to enable stakeholder participation and communication at all of the project sites that Chris talked about that are shown on the map. And our local community engagement teams will work at each of these sites to really obtain stakeholder feedback on issues including Justice 40 objectives, workforce concerns, and opportunities for disadvantaged communities. And as the community benefits commitment lead for the hub, I will be participating with our community engagement specialists in public listening sessions to be held by by our project liaisons at the sites. We have a number of community advisory mechanisms that we will put in place. The first is at the hub level, where we will have a community benefits committee that will encompass 3 advisory groups. The first is our community benefits committee that's made up of representatives from each of these projects at these nodes. It will have 3 tribal representatives, 3 labor organizations represented, and up to 3 environmental group representatives. We'll also have a representative from a minority serving institution. In addition to that committee, we'll have a tribal advisory committee and a labor advisory committee. And then at each of the node levels, we will have a community advisory board that'll be composed of representation from the host communities and also from our nearby tribes to those locations, and also from our labor groups. Both the hub and the projects will be encouraging participation in these committees via webinars such as this, town halls, and then meetings with community leaders. And we will be soliciting feedback through a wide variety of announcements. Beyond these advisory boards, many of our projects at our nodes are already working with specific groups to incorporate community input, support, and concerns into decision-making to promote accountability and equitable outcomes. For more details on what our projects are currently doing, please see the Community Benefits Commitment Summary on the OCED site, and you can also look at the PNWH2 website. So during phase 1, a lot of this community engagement is going to include monitoring and siting decisions, community interests, concerns, and priorities for the hub, including workforce gaps, initial engagement with labor unions and workforce development organizations to really look at local hiring, fair wages, and benefits.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. And to me, sort of this makes sense in phase 1. As you know, you're not yet at the stage of doing all the construction activities and things like that. So it sounds like to me, you're taking the time to create the relationships and the frameworks that are going to support workforce development ahead of the sort of anticipated construction phases. I'd say to that end, I'm interested in understanding how these discussions will move towards concrete agreements with communities and with the local workforce. Can you speak to that a bit more?
Sure. So all of the projects involved in the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub will pursue good faith negotiations towards community benefits agreements and or good neighbor agreements. And any construction project over $1 million will pursue a good faith negotiation towards a PLA, project labor agreement. Additionally, all of our projects will adhere to the hub's broader labor commitments, which include negotiating with community workforce agreements under any or collective bargaining agreements. The community benefits summary on the OCED website provides examples of how several of our nodes on the map here are already discussing agreements and partnerships with a variety of workforce and community organizations. However, due to the evolving nature of our project designs and our construction schedules, full PLAs are not expected to be finalized during phase one. Each project is continuing to pursue commitments supporting student education, fair wages, hiring practices with an emphasis on local labor and materials, as well as robust stakeholder engagement to really keep groups apprised of project development status at each location.
So I'd like to take a moment maybe to dig a bit deeper too on some of the things that I've heard. So you talked about high quality jobs, and I've heard some comments about investments in the local workforce as well. I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about some of those anticipated positive labor impacts that the hub expects to make.
Sure. So the hub expects to create more than 10,000 jobs over the course of the project lifetime. And we're currently working on developing a pathway to careers in the clean hydrogen workforce. So really sustaining that workforce through the hydrogen economy. The hub and its partners are working on these roadmaps that really can feature on and off ramps, if you want, that can allow people to leave the workforce and return without any penalty, to really facilitate their advancement, to higher positions, increase wages as they progress through their careers, and then to work with our labor partners and colleges and universities to really be more accessible especially to disadvantaged communities in the Pacific Northwest. Job development is going to include pre-apprenticeships, apprenticeships, obviously college and university programs, and really throughout all of those programs really promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the workplace. Excuse me, the hub really plans to foster a diverse workforce through an education and training coalition in the Pacific Northwest that will include minority serving institutions and tribal colleges. We really want to capture plans, services goals, and workforce development plans to establish how the hub is going to access a sufficiently skilled workforce and trained workforce beyond construction and into operation.
Fantastic. I want to speak just a bit about Justice 40 and the way that the hub plans to meet Justice 40 goals. And again, for context, Justice 40 requirements that were built into this funding opportunity originate from Executive Order 14008, which reflects the Biden administration's goal that 40% of the overall benefits of certain investments like the hydrogen hubs flow to disadvantaged communities that are marginalized by underinvestment and are also overburdened by pollution. So can you speak a bit about how the hub's activities are going to work to meet these Justice 40 goals?
Yeah, so the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Community Benefits commitments really are to improve business opportunities for diverse populations and really bring climate justice action to the region. So we plan to, or we hope to do this through establishing hiring targets for underrepresented and disadvantaged groups. We want to ensure we have continuing education plans in place to allow advancement opportunities for all workers in the hydrogen workforce. And we're really going to have a specific focus on workers who have been displaced from fossil and other carbon-based industries. We plan to offer supply chain and contracting opportunities to local and disadvantaged businesses in the regions that Chris talked about, and really setting some specific goals for tribal business subcontracting. In terms of the environmental impacts related to Justice 4D, we really want to work in partnership with entities that are committed to clean air and clean water, and really develop some baseline, initially during phase 1, develop some baseline air quality monitoring plans for relevant projects that we will then share with these community advisory boards that I talked about earlier, to get their input and feedback and hope and respond to that feedback as needed. We really hope to reduce environmental burdens at project sites throughout the Pacific Northwest. And again, some of that is going to include redevelopment of contaminated brownfield sites. So in phase 1, our goal initially is to update our Justice 4D assessment and implementation strategy, and really getting feedback from our communities as to how they want to see these Justice 4D benefits flow to their communities.
Great, thank you. One thing that I'd like to dive a little deeper on, engagement with tribes has come up in the conversation a few times. I know you all mentioned, I think, engagement with at least 3 different tribes at the overall hub level, as well as tribes being involved in many of these community advisory boards at the node level as well. So it seems like this is a cross-cutting element of PNW H2's community benefits commitments more generally. Can you take a moment just to maybe describe in more detail tribal engagement and sort of what that looks like for the hub?
Yeah, I think, ongoing dialogue with tribal nations is fundamental to the vision and success of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. We have engaged with several tribes and tribal-led organizations from the beginning. And many of our nodes are actually located near tribal nation lands. And we've identified about 15 tribes and tribal nations to be involved. But of course, we welcome any tribe or tribal nation in the Pacific Northwest that wants to learn more or engage with us to connect. The project has received support and letters of support from the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, and the Cowlitz Indian Tribe, who actually sits on the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Board. Our hub community benefits commitment team includes Zoe High Eagle Strong from the Nez Perce tribe. Zoe is Washington State University's Vice Provost for Native American Relations, and she oversees an MOU and active relationships with 13 regional tribes whose ancestral lands predate and cross modern state boundaries, many of whom are actually close or adjacent to the project sites that you see here on the map. All of our nodes that you see here are working with neighboring tribes on our community, and you can view those in the community benefits commitment summary on the OCED site.
Fantastic. I'm happy to see those strong relationships being forged and incorporated into your planning activities. We've talked about many different aspects of the community benefits plan, labor, tribal engagement. We talked about J40. One of the final aspects of the community benefits plan is the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility element. And so can you speak a little bit about what the hub plans to do to ensure that all of its activities are advancing DEIA within the region?
Yeah, I think so. One of our commitments for phase 1 is to really develop a DEIA plan for the hub that all of our project partners will adhere to. It really is, DEIA is a key component of our workforce development, our displaced worker training and employment efforts. And I talked earlier about its importance in subcontracting work at each of our projects. I'd also like to just take an opportunity here to talk about a public data reporting platform that we will have available to really enhance transparency and accessibility, and we can receive feedback to ensure that we really are adhering to those DEIA commitments. And obviously this reporting platform in later phases, so after phase 1, will include metrics that we have established for DEIA and other areas such as Justice 40 and workforce that we've already discussed. But initially, I think it's important for people to know that this platform will be providing updates on project status, updates, information about our community benefits commitments, about our advisory boards, and how to engage with us through phase 1 and beyond.
Fantastic. I'm happy to see a transparent mechanism for being able to report on those things, and look forward to those updates and tuning into the platform. So I want to just quickly say thank you for sharing so much about the project and all of these different aspects. So now we're going to move to our Q&A portion. We'll try to address as many of the questions that have come in from attendees today. Can we advance to the next slide, please? Just a few ground rules before we jump into discussion. So again, as many of you have found, the Q&A module is the best way to let us know what it is that you're curious about or where your concerns may lie. We just ask that everyone be respectful, and we will do the same. We'll just take one idea at a time. So if you asked a question that had sort of 4 different points, we're going to try to address those individually. It's the best way for us to keep track of whether or not all of the questions are adequately being addressed. And even as the conversation unfolds, if this sparks any other ideas or you request any additional clarification, it's okay to continue asking questions. We do acknowledge we have limited time here together, so we'll try to take as many of those questions as possible. I see we have all of our prior speakers back on video. Appreciate that. And we're going to go ahead and jump into our Q&A. So there were a number of different questions. Some were clarifying questions. Some we'd like to go into more detail, and a number of different topics. And one of the first areas is just related to energy sources within the hub. There was a comment earlier that this is intended to be sort of a green energy or green hydrogen hub. Can you talk a bit more and provide some information on the energy sources that are planned for the hub and all of the sub-locations and projects?
With no objections, I'll maybe start there, and then I'll ask others to chime in if they've got some input. It's a really important question, and I saw some other questions in the chat about sort of source of energy, how much energy, and some inference about the amount of energy that is needed. And I just want to make sure everybody's aware this is a challenge. There's lots of challenges in a new commodity market that we are trying to get through. There's lots of challenges always when you're trying to start a new sort of one of these kind of climate change, new energy technologies. Hydrogen's no different. And I think we will have some of the undulations that you've seen in the solar industry and the battery industry as those things have come online over the last many years. So we've got work cut out for us, and energy and supplying energy to these facilities is one of those. And in the Pacific Northwest, we've been quite fortunate and had a luxury for many, many years with an abundance of green power, hydropower. It's been the backbone of our economic development for 70 years. Which has been fantastic. And we still have great hydropower right now in Washington State just alone. And you could extend this out to Oregon to some degree as well. But I know the Washington State number's better. On a really good day, we might be 85% clean on our grid, depending on how much renewable sources coming in there. We have way more demand right now than we've had in a while. And it's not just hydrogen. Hydrogen's a very small part of that demand pie, if you were to put that in a visual display. We have lots of need to produce lots of new battery and solar manufacturing facilities. We have data centers. We have very high goals around EV charging. And so the question really, it's to me, it's not just about hydrogen and where that power is going to come from. We need more power for hydrogen. We need to bring on new renewable assets, solar and wind and those kinds of things. We need more energy storage mechanisms, but we need those to underpin the entire grid because of all of the climate change goals that we've got. And I'd say those kind of to some degree extend or transcend the entire West Coast. And so there is work to be done to make sure we get those renewable assets online as quickly as we possibly can and get the transmission built to get all of this connected. So there is work to do. I know that some of our hydrogen projects, need a little bit of energy, but we're going to have to keep working on it. We do have some existing resources, like I said, right now. And I know we're not probably going to get into this in any large degree, But there is some of this is a little bit dependent and reliant on how the final rule for the 45V tax credit gets completed, because there's some requirements in there about the kind of energy that you can bring online. Our goal at the end of the day is all renewable, 100% renewable. Our state has laws, and so does Oregon, to make sure that the grid is going to be 100% carbon free. Electrons on the grid that are traded are going to be carbon free. But I wouldn't try to hide the fact that there's a lot of work to do there if we want to adhere to the goals that we've got. So very important that we keep working on it. But fortunately, we do have some baseload hydro, we have some solar, we have some wind, and we have more assets coming on all the time. Just something we're gonna have to keep working on.
So very, very quickly, just in follow-up, I'm wondering, is there an aspect of coordination with utilities or regional transmission organizations or generation suppliers? Is there some aspect of coordination that's needed to make sure that there's adequate infrastructure to support these efforts?
Yeah, of course. It's there's lots of partners, and we're talking to lots of them, and they're all connected. There's a very broad ecosystem of people, thought leaders, electeds, folks that manage those utilities or those energy generation facilities, that are constantly thinking about this and working on this problem. There are folks at DOE really focused on this, and then DOE's really taken a much bigger view to work on this nationally and think about transmission infrastructure nationally to make sure that we get things built where we have some critical needs. So yeah, of course, there's lots of people coordinating. We'll need to do more of that, and we're having broad conversations and then specific conversations about certain projects to make sure that these things all get done. So there's more work to do, but there's a lot of really smart people, really good people that I think are working hard to try to make sure we can accomplish these goals.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I wanted to ask a bit just about some of the specific project locations. There were some questions about changes regarding those and perhaps changes related to siting or in response to community feedback. In particular, the FFI project was mentioned, and there was inquiry as to whether or not that would still be active. Can you talk at all about whether or not any of the project locations have changed, or any of the motivations associated with those changes?
Well, just real briefly. So for FFI, they've had a little bit of news, and so they've had a few projects around the world that have been using their lexicon deprioritized or sort of pushed down the list. And so one of the projects that was part of our hub in Centralia is sort of in that category for FFI as they do some sort of a reevaluation overall. They have not left the hub. They're not out of the hub. We are working with them right now on identifying some alternative sites and solutions. So they're very much still a part of the hub. And I don't have much more to report on that today. But what I will say just overall and generally, we've had, I think, the communications and discussions we've either been a part of or become aware of between our project developers and some of the locations they're in have been, I'd say, overall, on average, more positive than negative. And I'm being really conservative with how I sort of talk about that. But there have been some good conversations. We've had some projects already go through significant environmental review and receive public comment. And we haven't had an avalanche of negative comments. In some cases, we've had very little or none, depending on some of the projects. So there's more to do there. Transparency and community engagement are very important. And this is something I've done most of my career, working on really big projects and making sure we get good community feedback and working on these environmental impact statements. So we're going to endeavor to keep doing that. DOE is very focused on that as well. So this dialogue with communities is going to continue as we go through design, engineering, review, and permitting phases, and then get into the construction phases in the next few years here. So reception's been, I'd say, positive. The hesitation I have is to acknowledge that more people will learn about this, and we might encounter different points of view, and we'll have to be prepared to be able to answer those things sufficiently. So we're gonna work hard to do that. But we'll adjust as we go with all these projects. I could not sit here and commit to everybody that we won't have any other projects that need to find an alternative site. I bet we will. And all hubs across the country, I bet will go through this, and some actually already are. And it speaks to this larger issue that I inferred just briefly earlier, which is there's going to be, it's not smooth. It's not a smooth road, right? It's a little bit bumpy as you start to sort of build out supply and demand for a new commodity energy market all at the same time. And we're really accelerating the ability to do this with DOE's funds. And so you're going to see companies that are sort of out in front making a bunch of headlines that are looking real good and talking about all their customers and how good they're doing all over the world. And then you'll see those kind of take a step back, and new companies will emerge as this industry gets going over probably the next 10 years. And so to me, working on really large multi-billion-dollar clean energy projects for as long as I have, not the most surprising, just means you need to constantly keep a hand on the wheel for projects like this, to keep working them and try to make sure we get those products to market at the end of the day. What we want is the decarbonization achievement, and that's what we're going to keep working on.
I appreciate that. I want to turn to the community benefit side for a moment. So we've heard a bit about the dashboard, some of the metrics, the reporting, transparency at an overall hub level. There were some questions about how, what exactly that reporting will look like on an individual project level. So as folks are applying for projects with the hub, is there some sort of mechanism in place for reporting related to all of the community benefits commitments for those individual projects, or is there a need or a potential opportunity for others to come and support those sorts of activities?
So I can take a first shot at this, Chris. So I think in terms of overall reporting, we're going to be reporting at the hub level because those are our commitments, our hub level commitments to OCED. But it's really the role of those community advisory boards to ensure that each of our projects is adhering to those commitments that we're trying to make. So in terms of getting involved with those community advisory boards, we encourage people to reach out at the website, and our projects will be recruiting members for those committees, but obviously, and we will be ensuring at the hub level that representation of host communities is actually there.
I appreciate that. No, that makes sense. And that, I think, gives good guidance for folks who are interested. And I know our time is short. I did want to ask just about involvement of local companies within the supply chain, opportunities for businesses. There are a number of projects that you all have spoken about with a degree of certainty, right? We have some confidence that these projects are going to occur. Within the scope of those projects, have all of the sort of vendors, suppliers, subcontractors, are all of those relationships in place already, or are there still opportunities for local businesses to get involved in the projects that are forthcoming?
I'll take a quick first stab. And then thanks again, everybody. This has been really, I think, to me, hopefully this is helpful to folks listening as well. For folks that are interested in sort of being part of the supply chain, even if you're trying to sell equipment, you're trying to sell a service, any of that stuff, I think we definitely are interested in talking to lots of people. The best place to me to engage our hub is through the Charge cluster development work. So Charge is a hydrogen cluster accelerator organization that was launched by Washington State well before the Hydrogen Hub program existed, but they're affiliated and part of our hydrogen hub. And they are working constantly on connecting folks in the value chain. They've done a lot of work to help us get to this point by doing some matchmaking in some cases with project developers and off-takers and things of the sort. And so what I want to make sure to do is not give some false premise or false optimism that we've got additional resources as part of our $1 billion of proceeds from DOE to hand out. Those are earmarked, and we've had those dedicated and approved by DOE already. But we are planning to, the hub is just the first stop of this, right? We've got lots of demand initiatives that we want to continue to work on. We're trying to partner with other hubs around the country to make some sort of connective infrastructure around fueling stations and rail and those kinds of things. And so we're interested to have folks reach out to the Charge Hydrogen Cluster Accelerator group because we want to be able to engage with all these folks, and as maybe more projects or more grants or more things come online or new projects or opportunities emerge in all the space that I've been talking about, we want to make sure that we're connecting folks. And so not clear to me that we've got money to give away. Don't want to lead anybody with the bad impression there. But we know lots of people. So we do want to hear from you. So if you can reach out to the Charge network, and if we haven't gotten their information, we'll make sure we get that out to the folks that joined in here today.
I think that's an important point too, because I know that DOE's goal is to not just fund all of these activities indefinitely, but to make sure that other independent organic economic activity around hydrogen happens as a result of DOE's investment. So that makes sense from my perspective. Appreciate that. I think that's all the time that we have for questions. And so I want to just turn things back over to Susie, who will close us out. And I want to say thanks again to everyone for your questions and for participating in this discussion.
Thanks, Emmanuel, and thanks to all of our speakers and to everyone who was able to join us this morning. Although that's all the time we have for questions, we just really appreciate your interest and participation in today's session. For more information on the Hub or with additional questions or comments, you can reach out to us through any of these resources here, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. All right, thanks all. Have a great day.